All right. So
Because that's your recommendation right now.
my recommendation is to keep a close eye on everything you have on and don't fall in love with anything. I think that's very apparent.
Welcome to Hedge Heads, where hosts John Prishman and Ryan Tungseth discuss commodity markets, hedging, and anything related to trading futures. Remember, the risk of loss in trading commodity interests can be substantial. These are opinions only and not trading advice. While no one knows where the market's going, they're not afraid to share some ideas.
Well, John, we actually had spring for a little while there, and now today is cold and windy, but that hasn't stopped the phones, huh?
No, obviously this price action's going to get phone calls. A lot of, where is this going? What's that going to mean? A lot of cattle calls. The cattle guys, you can tell, are nervous because obviously there's a lot of money at stake here, and they want to know that everything's going to be all right. And clearly, no one has that answer. It does seem to change fairly frequently. Up is down, down is up. Cats and dogs are getting married. What was that Ghostbusters line? It's crazy. I mean, you just don't know what luck you're going to get on any given day.
Where is cash for cattle right now? I have not been following cattle at all. I do see they still like to go up most days.
Yeah, I mean, it got below cash. Then you have the north and you have the south. And then you get these weeks like this where it's chaos and you're going to get a lot of different prices. Had been trending slightly lower from those really high highs. April has not been a strong contract versus June lately. And that's not a great sign. It doesn't mean it's the end. It's still, April feels comfortable where it's at. If it's really bullish up front and it's underpriced, what you would want to do is buy the front. And that had been working. But I don't know that, them bear spreading the front, that's a really good short-term signal. But still throw it in the pile of no one knows where any of this is going. Back to the last podcast, this is a time for planning. So I'll get a phone call and we'll talk about, I have, too much new crop sold. What are we going to do for our corn? Or I don't have any new crop sold. What should I do for my corn? You're going to see a lot of different looks this time of year. You have old crop corn questions. You have new crop corn questions. Soybeans, no one cares about. I mean, they will care about. But then, of course, that's been the strongest looking market lately. And that has everything to do with the way the funds have been investing in these markets. And again, they've taken the route, everything's going to be fine in the trade deals. The tariffs aren't going to be a problem. And we're not going to have perfect weather, and they're putting some weather premium in there. That was not easy to predict that was going to happen, but that's really what's happening. You go into spring with two different looks, usually in grains. Either it's going to be perfect and be trendline yield and be trending down, or it's going to be like, this is going to be a disaster before we even start. Let's put a bunch of weather premium in. I would have guessed in the first one before, and now it's proving me wrong. They're putting weather premium in a market. And they were underpriced, but still, I mean, it's that it just fits with what's been happening since September. Very unpredictable where they're going to put their money, and the cash flows into commodities really tough.
Speaking of weather, I judge all areas by my backyard, but man, even with that amount of snow we got last week, it is dry out there.
Yeah.
It is. I don't know if it's going to stay that way, but
you got some moisture for the Western Plains, and it's a really tough weather pattern so far in the spring. There's really no rhyme or reason to it. What are we, like 38 degrees, 41 today? It was 62, 65, and a lot of jumping around in the weather. It's not producing a lot of moisture. It had that storm, and then the Central Plains are supposed to maybe get a big one coming up here. Looks a little optimistic to me to be that wet. So you just got these different looks in the weather. That's not helping things. Sometimes it's just best not to be all on the sidelines, but be very cautious in markets. That's for sure the markets that we have right now.
So you talked a little bit about putting weather premium in. Corn was, or the front of corn at least, was down today. What are you seeing from funds? Is there fund movement? Is there stuff being bought, sold?
Yeah, it looks like they're buying the back end, and it makes no sense. A bull's never led by the back end, and the way these guys invest, these momentum guys, is we think it's going to be bullish in December. Let's buy the December contract. Not let's get our hands on the available supply because we have no idea what's going to be back there. So generally the front leads. These markets lately, last 2 days, they've just decided, hey, we need to buy November beans, December cattle, or I'm at December corn, whether that's just money flow. See, I'm a big fan of the bull spreads. I think it's tightening in front, but that's not the way it's been trading. We had great news with the export inspections again on corn, gigantic. Corn exports look excellent. They remain excellent. We'll probably own the export market for the next 2 months. Then beyond that is all the worry. We have no idea with tariffs. We have no idea on all this acreage if it's going to be a good or bad crop. But that's where they're putting all the premium. It makes absolutely no sense. But these markets have been doing this since September. It's just, it gets this feeling. Momentum chases those feelings. And that's why it doesn't seem to make sense on a daily basis. And that's why you kind of keep your trades short. Like, look to capture profits, get out. And on the spec side of stuff. On the hedging side, it's really been do nothing has been the right answer in corn so far. I don't know if that's going to remain the right answer, but in these next 8-9 weeks, usually there's a lot of volatility, a lot of opportunity, and that's really what you want to focus on. Plan on that, because you won't be able to switch gears fast enough if you don't think about it till the day it happens. You go back 2 years ago, the entire rally came in 6 days in a row. So unless you're ready for this mentally, knowing this is most likely going to be where the highs come in, if you look at the seasonality of it in between now and mid-June, maybe into early July, you need to start planning. And that's really what we've been talking about, is not focusing on what doesn't make sense in the markets. So there's some guys probably are trading this very well. Still, it's that shorter time frames that are doing better if you get in sync with the market, which is really hard right now. But I still like the tightness going into summer with the corn and the good demand. I think there's going to be a story there. The beans, really, shrug your shoulders. They're capable of doing anything right now.
Absolutely anything. And the way the market's trading, they're expected to not do anything.
Yeah, it seems like the worse the news gets, the better beans do. And that's not that uncommon. But it's kind of been this way again since September. It's had terrible news. Let's rally $1. Then when everybody thinks this is a different deal, there's something going on, then it drops $1. And it's been a if you can get in sync with the market, it's been a good market. If you're out of sync, it can be very painful.
So do you think with the strength we've seen in beans lately that they'll take any acres from corn? Is that part why people are looking at the back end of these spreads? Or?
Yeah, well, you're going to have some of that. Definitely bidding for acres. I don't doubt that. It's trying that. There's a little of that mixed in there right now. Possibly a bean story. We don't know. Maybe there's a secret China deal. Who knows with that stuff? But yeah, I would say that's what's been happening. Trying to fight for some of these acres. I think a little too late. I think the opinion has been formed on soybeans mostly. But I think that's exactly what's happening. Corn, in my opinion, when it dropped on the tariffs here recently, cotton and beans got hit really hard. It was already kind of on the ropes. I don't think anybody trusts this bean market to sustain a rally. Again, though, soybeans can surprise you. It's cheaper to plant, on paper for most guys. So the June report will be interesting, but still with that guarantee on the insurance level with corn being profitable for most guys, I think that's still what wins. I don't think that number looked wrong in March. Your question is, could that shrink or grow into June? And what does the market think of it yet? I don't know what the market expects corn to do. Shrink in acreage or go up. I think that it thought it was going to be the highest number is going to be 95. And now with what's happened short term, I don't know that that's the case anymore. In other words, just as confusing as it was not that long ago, maybe even more so. That's not that uncommon this time of year. A lot of debate on the March. And if that hasn't been a big enough fight, they'll start debating the June, which is going to come pretty soon. Also, you've seen a lot of fringe acres. It can't be that yield. It's just that time of year where you hear every single argument under the sun. Not uncommon at all to be really optimistic for a lot of lower numbers ahead. We'll see. From the USDA meaning lower acreage, lower yield. The market's definitely adopting short-term the attitude that those might be high numbers, but that attitude can shift on you really quick to where they're going to be talking about 96 possibly in June. Really, the way the funds are investing now, very hard to figure anything out acreage-wise.
I do find it interesting. Like, I think back to the spring of 2018, I think it was the first trade war with China, the first time Trump was doing some of this stuff, and the way beans traded with every single news about a China tariff. It was volatile. It was both directions. It changed by the hour, probably.
Yeah.
This year, similar news, similar headlines, and beans just keep drifting up or holding steady. It is interesting.
It's almost like it wants to do the exact opposite of what it almost has to do. Like tariffs, terrible news, right at the height of it when it was intensifying. You're expecting this big Monday night down, went down, and then by morning it didn't want to go down. And then corn was kind of like that through the tariff talk. So whether they know something, maybe, whether they are over the tariff talk and they liquidate enough longs and they're net short in wheat and beans. I think we dropped 53,000 longs last week in corn. So they've been shedding these longs, especially up front, and they're net short. So it only makes it that much more confusing. But the way I see it set up is wheat's got the biggest short, beans have a pretty big short, and then corn is kind of a neutral number. It's positive. So, if there's going to be big short covered rallies, beans, that's why it can change so fast. Like you can see it in beans, you can definitely see it in wheat. I'd start looking at strategies that maybe could participate in that. I don't feel like chasing beans here, but still, that's where you got to look at your focus. Corn is just, again, has a different look every day. The front looks so strong, and it has looked strong leading on the way up. And now today, down 4 or 5 in the front for no reason. And then up in the back end on gigantic export inspections here this Monday. So very, very difficult markets. And I'll circle back to that yet again. This is a great time to start planning. Like if you can't get involved and you don't want to stick your neck out and you keep your powder dry. I like that this time of year. You want to look at like, what could we do? Are we going to be looking at really cheap corn puts because of all the acreage? Or we're going to start looking at following that stuff, start pricing that? Are we still looking at cheaper bean calls for summer? Just have a plan, start talking about it. And then, the next 10 weeks should be full of a lot of action.
I would agree 100%. I think this is the time of year where it's great to start establishing some of those targets.
Yeah.
Like I would like to get X on at this dollar amount and, then watch for the move, to get that. We need a month, if we're talking options, we need about a month of time and 50 cents in the, or whatever it is, and then watch for that target and then just be happy that you got that protection on,
the window might be very small. Sometimes it's just 1 or 2 days. You just gotta be ready for that. Don't fall into all that short-term negativity with everybody and really start focusing on what you want to do and what you want to plan on doing. And you can have your price targets. You don't all have to do it on futures account. It can be at the elevator. If it hits these levels, this is what I want to do. I want to maybe look at, once the weather gets to be a little more known, is there an accumulator a program that I want to get involved in? Although those can really bite you. Just start planning for what you want to do. Not what you don't want to do is throw your arms up in the air and say, I don't understand what's happening here. Then start planting and then get surprised by something. And then you won't be able to switch gears fast enough and start making phone calls and getting everything dialed in perfectly. So this planning process is super important this time of year. And you just want to know what your goals are going to be. Obviously, everybody wants to make money. Do I want to leave the upside wide open and look for puts, some sort of put strategy? Because I think the supply is low and corn could go way higher, beans could go way higher. Or do I think the beans are really capped here with all this tariff, so I'm looking at a little more conservative strategy, just enough to make money? You really want to know what your goal is and what the focus is going to be, because this next 2 months really can make or break your bottom line on your farm, and a few days can make all the difference. So just get in that mentality that this is going to change really quick, and it's changing really quick every day for us right now. and that's going to continue. But you still got to plant. You're going to be very busy. Focus on that, but still get ready to come up with some sort of plan. I'd have to say this is one of the tougher years that we've had going into a spring. I think keep a very open mind with everything and just try to figure it out day by day. Not spending a tremendous amount of time listening to a bunch of news sources. I'm just saying, just get a general feel for what the look is. And it's been so many different ones. Funds hate the stuff, then funds love it. Then it's fallen out of favor again. Next thing you know, they'll fall in love with the front of corn again, and maybe that's going to run. There's so many different looks, so many things that could happen this summer. I think the last 2 summers were a lot easier. I think this one's really difficult. And then throw the politics and the tariff stuff in there, and it only makes it that much harder. Just don't focus on all that and just control what you can control and plan for what you can do, and you'll be much better off.
No, I would agree. You do need to factor in, though, that as we've seen over the past 10 days or whatever, that the stock market can change these whether it's the Dow or S&P or whatever that we're trading futures on, that can affect the prices of grain too, because funds need to move money around.
Yeah.
So being aware that can, and that volatility is there and can change tomorrow, figuring out what makes sense for protection now might be the thing to do. And then, but to have a plan, maybe it's stepped in short term, whatever it is. We have something for this month, something for next month.
Yeah, that definitely happened to cattle. They started yanking money out of their winners, gold and cattle, really short time frame, but still it was a big downdraft. And that really got all the cattle guys' attention. So that market, we've been talking about tough markets, tough looks. Cattle markets, even tougher. Very good fundamentals, very supportive, but then very weak macro suddenly that could get a lot weaker or could get a lot better virtually overnight with one tweet, one different look. And then the stock market going back up would kind of sustain that cattle rally. It's been correlating pretty high to the stock market. Or we see down 1,500 points tomorrow in the Dow. I think cattle would be really spooked by that. So that's really tied to the stock market lately. If it wasn't already hard enough, cattle's that much harder with all the changes in the money flows like you were talking about. So again, don't focus on things you can't control. Don't get angry, and just try to focus on what you can control. The jump in volatility obviously makes hedging more expensive. And sometimes it's just best to watch the markets, and you really, there is no move like war games. The best move with the tic-tac-toe, eventually the computer learns the only move to win in a global nuclear war is to not move it and not move at all. And that's what it feels like in this market. Watch war games. I think it'll teach you that sometimes everything's out of your control, and sometimes you just need to be a market observer. Other guys will disagree. They'll say, embrace the volatility, and certain guys are. And you can really do well in the volatility, but that's not everybody. And sometimes you don't go looking for trouble, and you just see what's going to develop in the days ahead. We have no idea what the spring weather is, like we talked about earlier. The pattern's a very tricky weather pattern. There's no clear anything. It gets warm, then it gets really cool. I'd say cooler rather than warmer. And then wet in the east, very dry in the west. Probably one of the more difficult weather patterns. Just throw it in the pile of tough things. Tax day, that's no fun. I'm dealing with that all day today too, trying to shuffle stuff around there. So don't stress out, try not to, and just know everybody's kind of in the same boat as you. There's a lot of questions and not a lot of answers out there, and that's just the market that we have right now.
No, and that's, it certainly makes it hard for having podcast topics, but I'd say, through the week as things change, there's always, if you're an insider, Hedge Heads insider subscriber, Jon will have updates as things do happen, as things start to clarify. Yep. I think for today, there's times where you just got to sit on your hands and watch, and it seems like that's where we're at.
Yeah, it is. And then by tomorrow, that could change to where it's really obvious to what you're doing. That's just the market that we're in. Again, on the insider, you're going to be able to get a lot more in depth. Like this week, we're going to talk a lot about corn. If you sold too much new crop, what are some strategies? If you haven't sold any new crop, what are some strategies? And we're going to kind of cover corn and spill into wheat a little bit. Cattle, I just need a little more information on that before I'm looking for a rally to start looking at hedges. We'll be talking about that in there. And we try to hit that stuff briefly in these podcasts. But still, it is just a market that has everybody kind of shrugging their shoulders, shaking their heads every day. And markets go through phases like this. It's not uncommon. I would say this is probably the least like predictable feeling market that I've seen in a while. Like we're just as likely to be down 1,500 in the Dow tomorrow even this afternoon as we are up. Grains are just as likely to be up a bunch tomorrow as down. And it's just the markets that we have. And that's sometimes with trading and hedging, that's just that's what you get. So how do you handle that? For me, I've said this numerous times, more in the planning phase than the doing phase right now. Other guys are going to embrace the volatility, try to ride that wave. Even that's kind of cooled off a little bit. I like the volatility, but I like a little bit more predictability than we got. But that's
then you wouldn't have volatility.
Yeah, then you wouldn't have volatility. So yeah, just sit back, see what this week brings, and we'll be talking about a lot next week when things slow down a little bit. After these number of crazy days, it's hard to just even catch up. But I feel like now guys are used to this, and the market's probably going to switch gears again here very soon and be a little more predictable.
I'm sure eventually we'll have an episode where we say absolute clarity coming up on this episode.
Yeah, that's we were due for one of those. We need one of those. But light positions or keep the risk minimal, intraday stuff. There's still definitely opportunity in these markets. Plenty of opportunity. Theta trader, he's Theta farmer, excuse me. He's been kind of updating us via Twitter. He's been having fun with the volatility. So there's opportunity there. Just know what you're doing, and it's not really predictable. But again, some guys thrive in this environment. On the hedge side of it, it makes things more difficult, and we'll just wait it out and see what happens. It's a good time of year for that. Generally, there's upside, not always. And then you have that little window. Then you got to decide what to do. And then obviously it'll break down in the summer more often than not. And that's what we're planning for again this year.
Yeah. On the fun side, I did get the boat ready this weekend. I did not actually get it out of the garage out to the lake to make sure it's running, but everything else is ready to go.
Me too. I'm going to try to go Wednesday afternoon if it works out. There's a little local lake here in town. And try to go there, make sure everything's working. It's supposed to be 67 degrees. Then pretty soon it's going to be walleye fishing. So looking forward to all of that. It'll be a nice break. But today's tax day. We'll finish that. I'm sure that's going to put everybody in a good mood.
Right.
Yeah. No, it is what it is.
I am due for a crappie dinner. We did not get out on the ice towards the end of the year, so I'm ready for some fresh crappie.
Yeah, these springs here have gone from 45, 51 straight to 89 degrees, right? in the first half of May. We've not had that transition for a number of years. It's been really cold at the end of April for a few years now. And just something normal is all anybody's looking for in this area. And like you say, it won't be too long before rain will be the topic that will be talked about for sure. Needing rain up here. The East, they don't need it. We need it. Kind of this weird pattern going on, but starting off very dry here.
Yeah, it is. Want to leave your number, John?
218-731-1578.
Thanks, John.
Sure. Bye.
And you're saying this will be our most disorganized episode in a long time.
Oh, yeah. I haven't even begun to look at anything but the markets a little bit today. I mean, just a lot of calls, a lot of tax season. That's another big headache.